Hello, and welcome to the Eternal ROI Podcast. My name is Chris Patton. I am the CEO of His Way at Work. And today, again, I'm joined by Jody Armstrong. Jody is a His Way at Work master coach, has been with us for the last 8 years, almost 8 years, coaching His Way at Work companies, installing this operating system that we call His Way at Work for the caring culture. And I want to bring Jody on and tell you thank you again for coming here for a second episode.
Thanks for having me back, Chris.
Fantastic. It is, for those that are listening to this episode, didn't catch the last one, I just want to go back through real quick what your career looked like before you got here to His Way at Work. So you've been with us almost 8 years, but what did you do before that?
So I've spent 30 years of my life in supply chain management, and that would be in the food service supply chain management, 4 of which were for a distributor, 10 of which were for a vendor who supplied French fries to McDonald's. And I was responsible for our business in U.S. and Canada before I left there and went to work for Burger King Corporation, where I was director of distribution for U.S. And from there, I went to work for Burger King's supply chain manager called Restaurant Services, and worked in their distribution services, and also for a subsidiary called Supply Chain Services. And also, I spent 3 years at Denny's managing their U.S. distribution and logistics. And Denny's is what brought me here to Spartanburg.
So their headquarters is here in Spartanburg.
That's right.
Fantastic. Well, clearly, you've had a fantastic history prior to coming to His Way at Work. But in the last almost 8 years, you said in the last episode, you've coached 25 to 30 different
That's
companies.
right.
And in what I think was almost 45 different locations.
That's right.
So based on that, we established, and I just want to restate it here for the audience, that in my opinion, and anyone else other than you're an expert in this His Way at Work operating system and implementation of that in companies. Would you agree with that?
I've always got more to learn.
Sure.
But absolutely, yes.
I didn't say you're the best in the world.
I'm very familiar with our His Way at Work operating system. No doubt about it.
Good. Well, based on that, in the last episode, we talked about the top 5 most common challenges for CEOs or business owners as they go into this implementation of our system to try to create a caring culture, right? So we talked about the challenges from the CEO or business owner's perspective. Today sounds very similar, but we're going to shift pretty dramatically the perspective. So today it's the 5 most common challenges for the caring team leader, or facilitator as we call it, and the caring team themselves. Now that is a component. The caring team is a His Way at Work component of this caring system that we put in place, right? So we work with companies.
That's right.
Starting back with the CEO's vision, all the way through the leadership team, a vision and strategy for caring. We put this team in place, caring team made up of entry-level employees with a leader that helps guide that team but is non-voting. And then from that team, they do these caring activities using the budget given to them, the strategy and vision given to them. They use our guidelines, they put these things into place, and then they report back to leadership. They manage the communication. There's just a whole lot that goes into this system.
You've summed it up really well. Yes.
All right.
The caring team is a key component of our caring structure.
We talked earlier, it's not the system, it's a part of the system. And with this part alone, you won't get a transformation of your company culture. But if it's part of this overall system, you will. But here's the thing we want to talk about today. As I just went through lightning fast, this whole system, the one that leads that team and then the team themselves, they are the engine of this system. And as a result, a lot of stress and strain is on that part of the system, and therefore challenges pop up, right?
That's right.
Now, it's our job as we go in, you're specifically going to companies to help minimize the pain, to lead through those challenges, to help them, as Peter has said, or the founder of His Way at Work has said, we help them to avoid sticks in the eye.
That's right.
As we navigate it. But I want to pause here and dig into the challenges faced by these facilitators and caring teams themselves. And one, give a sense to the business owners and CEOs listening as to what these challenges are and how they may be able to help minimize and assist in some of those challenges. But also for those out there that are in a company maybe that's just getting started, or they think, hey, this could be something we're interested in. So we want to talk about those challenges and the fact that, hey, they're common, but it doesn't mean we can't solve them. And I think we've got some pretty good answers to those.
That's right.
Very cool. So you gave me the list earlier of the top 5. I'm just going to run through them real quick, and then we'll just kind of dig into each one, starting at the first. So the first one you said was the facilitator most often, and sometimes the team themselves, but they don't have enough bandwidth. They're typically in a smaller company given this job plus their normal job. And while this is not necessarily a full-time role, if they don't have enough offloaded to give them time to do this, there's going to be a tension there. That's certainly right. One. Number 2 is, and we talked fairly at length about this in the last episode, but the CEO sometimes is still involved and continues to be involved in the caring team decision making. And we advise against that. We talked about how the CEO can avoid that earlier, but it's still a challenge the facilitator faces.
That's right.
So we want to talk about some of that. Number 3 is the leadership. CEO, vision team, the top leadership is not fully supporting the caring efforts at certain points. And we'll talk more about what that looks like and then how to avoid that. But when the leadership doesn't fully support through these means, the facilitator and the team feel the stress of that.
They'll suffer.
Right. They suffer. Number 4 is that caring team facilitator and that team that's doing a lot of work, and they're driving a lot of change and they're creating some fantastic things, but they can pretty frequently feel underappreciated. And that's a challenge when you're a caregiver, but you don't feel like there's appreciation coming back, whether it's through support or other means, then that can be a challenge and that can be draining. Right?
That's right.
And then finally, number 5, this one I really want to make sure we touch on. The caring team facilitator, the caring team themselves can often suffer from that caregiver syndrome where they don't get enough care themselves, right?
Even caregivers need to be cared for.
In fact, more so because they're pouring out more than the average. So we'll dig into those. So let's start with number 1. The facilitator does not have enough bandwidth. Tell me what you mean about that, and why is that such a challenge, and then how can we overcome that?
So when we give an employee a chore to do or a task or a job, we expect that we're going to also give them at least some time to get it done. And caring takes some time. And we need to give the caring team facilitator the time to accomplish that. What we see in the work that we do is that the caring team facilitator's time will be anywhere from 15 to say 30% of their time will be spent caring, depending on the size of the company, the caring activities that are involved, and all that goes with that. As the company grows and the caring culture really takes hold, it may be even more than that, depending on the direction that they go.
Let's pause here a second, because this just pops into my head as you're going through that. As a CEO, if you're listening, first thought may be, I can't afford someone who's taking 30% or greater of their time to do this caring thing. I'm already paying the budget of the caring. I've got additional money invested in this person doing their full-time job, and to additionally have them spending 30% or even greater as the company grows, I'm losing that money. But that's not true, right? Because the work they're doing is transforming the culture of the company, and that transformation will lead to exponential performance increases. And so in God's economy, and this is not a gospel, prosperity gospel type message, but in God's economy, when you are taking better care of those people and you're loving on them in a systematic way, consistent and fair, over time, the company performance will improve. And in fact, we've seen company after company experience growth where the caring is actually more than paid for by the increases that they see. So I want to, before that question even pops into anybody's head, I want to address that. So let's go back. They don't have the bandwidth. They've been given an additional 30% roughly of their time to do work to do, but they may not be given that same amount of time. So what happens?
So it makes it really difficult on the facilitator. It's hard to get the day job done and get the caring done. And we want to do caring well. As we mentioned in the last podcast, that we need to be good stewards of our time, and we need to give the facilitator the opportunity to do the same for their time and the caring that it takes to do it.
So a couple things come to mind. Number one, I would tell the CEO, ask the facilitator, right? Do you have enough time? Now, you've got to ask it in a way that doesn't say, you've got enough time, right? You can't push them into an answer. But you may have a couple different responses. Obviously, some will say, no, sir, or no, ma'am, I do not. I need more time. But some may say, no, I'm good. And you can't just settle for that. Because one, if they're of the personality that probably led you to put them into that role, they may be the type that says, I'll just give more out of me, and I can't ask for anything. So what you've got to be able to do is dig a little bit, press on them, observe, ask others.
That's right.
Them.
And one opportunity also is that the caring facilitator may not be delegating things that they could delegate.
So they can do the same thing the CEO
they can
does.
do some delegate to the caring team members.
Yeah.
And so there's an opportunity to free up some time for the caring facilitator. I'd like to go back to the idea of the question of who do we put on the caring team. Some companies tend to want to put supervisors on the caring team so that they I don't know, they feel like maybe they'd be better stewards of the funding and all that. And which we found actually that when we put frontline employees on the caring team, that managing the funding is not an issue. That's a subject for another discussion probably. Sure. But what we found is that by putting frontline employees on the caring team, it frees the supervisory team up to do their job.
Wow.
So it actually saves resources from the supervisory side to allow the frontline employees to do the caring.
That's good. So the basic message here is to limit or minimize this challenge or even eliminate it. It's do some digging, right?
Yes.
Figure out, does this facilitator have the time needed to do what you expect them to do? And that starts with your, as a CEO or business leader or leadership, your acknowledgement and owning of the fact that building this caring culture will benefit the company as well. You're not just doing something that brings no return. It's an eternal return, obviously, but there's also business benefit. So,
no doubt.
So don't lose sight of that, and don't try to cheap into it thinking I'll just kind of check this box and I'm doing this. No, this could be critical and central to the performance of your company.
So we've seen situations where we've gone in and coached companies and come back a year or 2 years later and found that the feedback that we've gotten is that the caring team has become the heart of caring in the company. And beyond that, employees from other companies are now coming to that company to work because they've heard through the grapevine that, wow, this is a great company to work for. So how cool that people are coming to your company and filling out applications and coming to work for you because they've heard that it's a great place to work.
Yeah, another episode, if you're listening now, to go check out is one with Brad Thompson, who's retired CEO of Columbia Forest Products, your first coaching job.
That's right.
And Brad said, I went in a mill, a lumber mill type atmosphere. I went from looking and looking and looking for people to having a waiting list within 18 months of putting his way at work in place, and people from other companies showing up at the door saying, I've heard about your caring and I want to work here.
That's exactly right.
Take a listen to Brad's episode. That's a good one. All right, so let's go to the next challenge, which is the CEO is still involved in decision making. Now, you smile because we just got through talking about this in the last episode where the CEO has that challenge. But just because he or she is challenged by it doesn't mean nobody else is. The facilitator is also challenged when the CEO doesn't step back from the decision making, right? Talk about that.
That's right. Well, let's say that you have the authority as a caring facilitator to run the team. You call the meeting. You are given opportunity to manage caring activities through the caring team, and you all have taken your time that month to make decisions about certain caring decisions and expenditures, and then the CEO says, well, let's do it this way, or let's do it a different way, or let's not spend that money right now, or whatever that, I'll call it what it is, interference may be. It really causes the caring facilitator to wonder, why am I even doing this if he or she is still going to make the decisions?
Yeah.
And that begins to break really trust down between the caring team and the CEO. So if we're going to tell them that we're going to give them the authority to care and we're going to give them a budget to manage in that doing that caring, then we need to let that play out. And I think that our process of implementing this caring operating system will give the vision team or the leadership team the confidence that we put the guardrails on that they need to, that the caring team needs to make good decisions.
Yeah, that's a good point. And, we talk about the CEO being involved in decision making. Sometimes it's not just they're sitting in the meeting and changing the direction of the decision just made by the team. Sometimes they're not even in the meeting, but they're still impacting it. And here's what I mean. Maybe the facilitator has been given most of the authority needed to make decisions, but has been told, I need you to check with me after you guys have made a decision, run it by me and I'll sign off on it. Well, you may not be in the room as the leader or the CEO, but you're still involved in the decision making, and it should be the team alone making that call. Another example may be a CEO. I've even seen this where the CEO says, listen, I don't want to limit their giving. So I'm not going to give them a defined budget that may stop them short. I'm going to leave it open-ended. So there can be more caring. Well,
it sounds good on the surface.
And it's a good intention, right? None of these things that we're talking about as challenges are the CEO going, how can I mess this up today, right? It's good intentions. But what that does is requires the facilitator to come to the CEO before spending any money every time. All right, we've decided to spend this, this, and this. Are we okay with that? Yeah. There's no budget. We're good. But he or she, as the CEO, is still involved in the decision making because they have to sign off.
So here's an example. It's happened down in, let's just say, a very warm part of the country.
Okay.
In the summertime, an hourly employee was in the middle of a messy separation or divorce and had 3 young children and was renting a home in a bad neighborhood, just not a great place. And the air conditioning went out. It wasn't working. And she went to the caring team, or they found out that this person had this problem. And so the caring team decided, you know what, we're going to buy this employee a window unit. We've got to take care of those children. And so they bought a window unit and put it in had it installed in the home. And later on, the landlord showed up and said, I'm here to collect rent. And he saw the new air conditioning in the window. And he said, if you've got money for that, you've got money to pay me rent. And she said, I didn't buy that air conditioner. My company bought it for me. And he goes, there's no way. Companies don't do that. No. And he didn't believe her. But in fact, the company did buy her the air conditioning unit. And the question would be, in your example, is would a CEO sign off on buying an air conditioning unit for a rental home, or not? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But the caring team knew this person well enough to know her needs and her children's needs that they made that decision. The cool thing about this story, the end of it, is that I saw the owner of the company later, and he had no clue that this had happened, but he was absolutely thrilled that kind of caring was taking place and he knew nothing about it.
Yeah, that's great. All right, so the CEO is still involved in decision making. In this case, recommendations here, as you can tell, is 1, give full authority to that team. Let them make the decisions within the guidelines that have
That
been
we lay
established. Exactly. But also make sure the budget is well defined. Give them some flexibility. They're responsible. They're also accountable because there's reporting on a monthly basis, right?
That's right.
So that's your warning light. If there's a problem, you'll see it in that
That's
reporting.
your checks and balances right there.
Exactly. So number 3 is leadership. Now, this could be the CEO, but it also could be executive level leaders. It could be upper level management, whatever, but leadership is not fully supporting the caring efforts. And that's a huge challenge. Tell us, what does that look like?
So it can look like 2 major categories, I guess. One is the caring team puts together a caring activity, let's say an event, and the leadership doesn't show up. Oh, that's the caring team doing something. Let them handle it. Hey, when they put something together, the leadership should show up for the event. It says this is important. If a caring culture is important to this company, then the leadership should show up for caring events.
All right, so let's clarify there for a moment. Possible point of confusion.
If the caring team is not seeing leadership talk about the company vision for caring and seeing them talk about their core values, the company core values, the purpose of this company, if they're not seeing that on a regular basis being discussed by their leadership team, then the caring team is not going to be feeling like that leadership is carrying the water that they ought to be carrying, and that everything in terms of caring is dumped onto the caring team. And that's not the case. As we've mentioned in earlier podcasts, this is a system. We can't just have a caring team that stands alone by itself. It has to be fed, and it's got to be supported. And in this case, we're talking about the support of leadership pushing the caring culture forward in the company with the caring team in a major support role. If the first part's not happening, the caring team can't do its part well, and they'll burn out, and they'll feel like that they're not being supported.
Yeah, that's really good. So you talk about the support by showing up for events. That's part of it. Acknowledgement, talking about the core values, the purpose, the mission within the company, and referencing, our caring team and the work they do to help us support this. But there's also, you show up to an event as a leader and you see this event that's put together. If you've not been to these events before, you're probably going to be surprised at the size and the attendance. But then here are the things that happen. An employee walks up to you blind and says, Jody, I know you don't know me, but I work on the floor on third shift, whatever. But I know you're on the executive team. And I just want to say thank you. Because I don't know if you know this, but so-and-so happened to me last month or 3 months ago. I'd only been here 2 weeks, and the caring team jumped in and took care of me. Evidently, they didn't even have to ask anybody. They just did it. And it put my family and I back on the right track. And you've got me as an employee for life. I've worked at 10 other companies, and I'll never leave unless you throw me out. Thank you.
That's organic caring.
Right? So number 1, yes. Number 2, you're feeling good because you've attended this meeting, but what are you going to do next? You go to the caring team facilitator or a team member and say, man, this guy just blew me away and told, fantastic job what y'all are doing. It is so exciting.
It gives you a perfect opportunity to say thank you.
To show that appreciation. Yeah. Exactly. And everybody walks away feeling better.
That's right.
Right? Yep. All right. So number 5, let's assume for the moment, in some cases, there's leadership not supporting. The team is feeling underappreciated. But even if those aren't the case, when you have caregivers giving of themselves constantly, like this caring team does, then they've got a chance to get burned out.
That's
to
right.
just be constantly drained without anything filling them. So one of the biggest challenges we see is them as a caring team facilitator and a His Way at Work caring team not getting the care that they need. So what does that look like?
It looks like a team that's burned out.
Yeah.
And they'll start looking for ways to get off the team. And some may even leave the team because they're not either feeling appreciated or they're not being cared for in a way that they should be.
How good is their care?
It may not be at the level that you'd like for it to be in the company. So what do? in our experience with the monthly caring facilitators meetings that we do for our members, we're finding that caring teams now are taking a 1-day retreat, maybe a half-a-day retreat, or maybe even a 2-day retreat, depending on the size of the company and the complexities and whatnot. But there's a retreat involved on an annual basis is what we're seeing a trend toward. And these retreats are to nourish these caring team members. They also do some productivity here. They put in some production in that they do use it as planning for the next year, but they do take part of that time to nurture the caring team and to recognize the hard work that they're doing.
That's good.
Some of these decisions that these caring team members make to help their fellow employees and their families are not easy.
Well, the decisions are not always easy, but also walking alongside people in crisis constantly it's just difficult.
It can be draining.
Yeah.
And scripturally, Christ and his disciples went off to rest and pray often.
Yeah.
And so we can never lose sight of the fact that this is a faith-based thing. This caring is not something that we just say, okay, y'all go do some nice things. This is very connected throughout the whole company.
Yeah. One of the things that comes to mind that a company can do, that a business owner or CEO can do, is make sure you have chaplaincy in your company, that chaplains are coming into your company. You can use Corporate Chaplains of America. There are others that do similar things. But having that chaplain there, one, I know from experience with Corporate Chaplains of America that they do what we've just described. They are extremely careful to care for their chaplains because
Absolutely.
They know they're going through extremely intense and difficult times with these employees, the various companies they served. So they're getting the nourishment they need on a quarterly and annual basis. But also they are in the company, they're bringing confidential care, they're able to counsel, they're able to talk with these caring team members, the facilitator, and all of your employees in a way that can help them deal with that crisis management, that caregiving. And because they are one, they can certainly speak to the challenges of that caregiver syndrome much easier. So I just strongly recommend that.
Absolutely. The cool thing is that His Way at Work caring operating system is complementary to the chaplaincy.
Yeah, it just fits right in hand in glove.
The caring team will come up with caring activities for employees and their families that then can be made available to the chaplain to actually advise team members to use.
Yeah.
It gives the chaplain tools that they didn't have.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, Jody, that's a tough list. It'd be a tough deal to do that job, but how rewarding as well, right?
Super rewarding. We have caring facilitators who've been doing it for years, and they just love it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, man, I appreciate you taking the time to share with us these challenges today and what you've seen in the companies you've served.
Thank you for inviting me, Chris.